Okay, now that we created a basic material to show how the system is going to work, I'm going to take these and delete all of them. And this one also I'm going to delete because we are going to use first material. And when finished creating this first material, then we create duplicates and layer upon layer create the last materials. Okay, for now we only care about this. So the thing that we created here for the base color is good. I'm happy with it and I'm going to keep it. Normally the main changes that we make to base color is the desaturation, making it darker and giving it a bit of tint. And this is basically what it's doing and I'm happy with it. So for the placeholder textures, you can use these default textures and there's nothing wrong about it. You should only take care that the compression setting stays throughout whenever you enable sRGB and set the compression setting to something in here. Whenever you want to replace it in material instance section, it should going to have the same compression settings as well. Or you can create your own utility textures inside Photoshop and import them in. For example, this is the texture that we created inside Substance. Let's look at the size. It's 4K and we're not going to use a 4K as a default texture because every time we take a material instance from it, we are basically duplicating that 4K texture over and over again, and it's going to take a lot of performance, a lot of texture memory, and really unnecessary. So we're going to create a 60 by 60 or 32 by 32 image, and then I'm gonna get one of the colors from here. It's not really important. I just want the whole texture to be monotone. That is all that matters. So again, for the normal map, let's come in here and let's make it 32 by 32. We're going to make it pretty cheap so that it doesn't have any extra cost on the performance and on the storage as well. So let's take this one and start to paint all over. We want this one only to be monotone, and this one is a little bit tricky because it has some channels, and to view the channels you come in here and select the channels. You see it has R, G and B, and when you decide to put an information in here, you should stay consistent throughout. For example, in this texture, AO, it has been placed in red channel, green is hosting the roughness channel, and blue is hosting metallic, and we have no metallic in those woods. So whenever you create a channel pack texture, it should follow the same rules. The R should be AO, green should be roughness, and blue should be metallic. And also I'm going to add another alpha channel later on if we created a tiling material that has some height to it for height blending or things like that. I have decided to add an extra alpha channel in here. Not extra alpha channel, basically an alpha channel. So we have painted this, and let's go for this one, and I'm going to resize this one to 32 also. We just need to have the channels right. So let's take the color from here. I don't want it to make it blue or something because it gets converted into normal map pretty easily inside Unreal Engine. So let's make the opacity all the way to 100 and paint all over. So we have these ready, and I'm going to export this. So into these utilities, I'm going to call this base color U, so that I mean its utility, and set the format to be PNG. I want to use PNG. Okay, settings, and this one as well. Let's call it normal underscore U for normal utility, and the format again going to be normal. And this one, it has an alpha channel, and you should remember that it has an alpha channel. So let's call this one, let's call it AORM, or you can simply call it ARM. And I'm going to call it ARM Edge because some of the textures later on we create may host a height channel as well. So we save them and let's re-import them here. I'm going to create a folder called utility and bring my utility textures in here. And these are these textures, and now let's select them and make everything all right. So this one is the arm edge. I'm going to set it to mask. And every time you import a real texture in here, you want to set it to mask as well and sRGB turned off. And this one is good. I'm happy with it. And the last one is the normal map. And a normal map is right because of the color it has set it to normal map and it's right as well. So let's start to replace this. So let's search for base color hue, and now instead of that color we have a lot cheaper version of that, and it's basically a 32 by 32 texture that is nothing really in performance. And you can also go 16 by 16 and nobody is really stopping you from going there. And this is good for the texture. So if the preview isn't getting updated, you want to come in here and hit real-time nodes, and I believe, yeah, this one gets the previewing done, but it's going to have some cost in the performance. So I'm going to keep it the way it is. So this is texture sampler, and in input I'm going to write here base color, because everything you do here is going to be reflected there. So then we have this desaturation, it's all right, and then we have this base color tint, and I'm going to add a BC before every one of them so that I know it controls BC, and it's good for naming conventions and optional. If you're happy, you do it. So this is BC tint, and this is, I'm going to call it BC. Instead of darken, I'm going to name it brighten, because if I'm increasing the value, I'm basically brightening the effect, not darkening the effect. So let's make these ones all right. So let's see, for now we're happy with this. Let's select all of them and hit C, and it creates a comment box around them. I'm going to call this albedo or base color or anything you want to name them. So this is the base color controls, and if we go in here and start to see them, you see the names have been changed respectfully. And the next one, I'm going to bring it, let's select this and bring the arm edge in here, and you see it set the compression setting to mask, which is what we want. So let's create a comment box around this and call it arm edge so that I know what this texture is going to do. So let's look at the output, and in here we need to drag the metallic and bring it all the way to blue, because blue, if you remember, was holding down the metallic. And for metallic I'm not really going to do anything because metallic is a switch. It's not like roughness, you increase it or decrease it. It's a switch, metallic yes or not. And this is the only thing that I do to metallic, because every time it's metallic it's going to use another method for shading that part, and if it's non-metallic it's going to use another. So I really suggest only leaving metallic to 0 and 1. Of course there are parts where they are in middle, for example rusty metal or half rusty metal, that's something in between, and that's valid to keep it. And I'm going to create another output and call this one height, and drag this one from this alpha all the way, and I'm going to keep them separate from each other. for a little bit of house cleaning. Let's see for the next one. It's a specular. I'm not really touching it. And then it's for roughness. For roughness, I'm going to bring in a lerp, and I'm going to use the roughness map, which is the green channel, as the alpha, so that I can give two values as roughness min and roughness max to derive the roughness information for us. And I really found this method to be very useful. So I'm going to create a couple of constants, 1, 2. I'm not going to set them to 1, 0 and 1 because it's going to use the full spectrum and we're getting a lot of contrast, and that is not what I want. For basic, I'm going to set it to 2.5 or 0.25 and this one 0.75, and drag this one into a function input and put this one here, and I'm going to hide this. And again, I'm going to bring a function input as well. And because this one is a scalar, it's selecting the best option for us. And assign it here, and I'm going to put it to roughness. This is the ultimate control for the roughness. So let's drag a comment and call it roughness. Okay, and now what we're going to do is renaming these. I'm going to call this roughness min, and this one I'm going to call it roughness max. So let's save it, and we're getting a lot of errors in here. And you see what is happening in here. We are getting some things in between here. You see these base color controls, roughness control is getting in between the controls that we have. I want all of them to be neighboring so that I can control them a lot better. So there's something called the sort priority. So if the sort priority of something is 0, it's going to appear on the top of the list. It's 1, it's going to be down, and it's going to be 2, it's going to be down more. And using this sort priority, you can really organize your things a lot better. So the first one was this base color texture. And one thing, I want to keep my textures all in the top of the list. So let's give this sort priority of -1, and you should do that on the functions. And this one also give the sort priority of -1 as well. So I feel like I've done something wrong, and before that I need to do something like this to make this exposable to the master material. So I need to drag a wire out and bring a function input in so that we can later on change this, and I'm going to call this RHA or ARMH, and it's bringing us a vector 3, and we can drag a wire out and search for bring brick components, and I'm going to use 4 components, RGB and A, which stands for alpha. And if you're not going to use alpha, you can use 3 components instead of 4 components. So let's drag this one outside of the view. I'm going to hold down control on this node and bring the green in here, and looks like it's not working with break float component 4. So let's try 3. So this is 3, and now let's rewire the G into the I'm going to rewire the G into the alpha of this roughness lerp, and now it's working. And for B, I'm going to connect it to metallic, so it's working all right. Let's take this one and delete it, and then it remains the R, which stands for ambient occlusion. And then this one, I decided to drag it directly into here. As you see, we have previously dragged this one. It's okay. We're going to use this as a height later on, maybe creating some height lerp things. And now let's bring in the normal map as well. Let's select this and search for normal underscore U. And this is the texture that we created. Let's click on it to make sure. Here, this one is it. And it changed the compression settings to normal map as well. And let's right away connect this one into the normal. And the reason I did that was to expose this to master material so that we can bring them on top of the list. So again, let's drag a function input, and this one, yeah, goes all right. And name this one normal map. So let's hit save. And now if we come here, normal map RM are in here, but the base color is on top. So I'm going to select this function input, again sort priority to -1, and this one to -1 as well. So let's hit save, and now that we look at it, the map inputs that we have are here at the top, and this is what we wanted really. And later on I'm connecting the needed outputs as well. So let's go and create. For ambient occlusion, again, I'm going to create a lerp and drag the ambient occlusion map into the alpha of this. And I'm going to do the same thing and wire these in. And it may not be needed to do this as well. You can directly connect it and use it, or you can use controls, whichever you want to do. So I'm going to keep this to see what happens in the future. So for the, I'm going to call it AO min and call this one AO max. Okay, and for the defaults, let's set this one to something around here. I don't want it to be pure black. And this one, let's set it to 1. And put the output of the lerp into the AO and call this AO. Okay, now we are remained with only the normal. And the control that I'm going to add for the normal is going to be flatten normal. We feed the normal in here and give it a constant. We want to give this a scalar, so let's drag a constant and from that bring a function input and call it normal strength. And there's something odd about this node, is that this node actually doesn't increase the power of normal. It also removes from the power of normal. If you look at it, it's called a flattened normal, not a strengthened normal. But psychologically, I love to, when I'm going to add to a value, for example, making the value 2 or 3, think that I'm adding to the value, not flattening the value. But in this here, if you start to increase the number, it's going to flatten your normal even more. So I'm going to reverse the effect using a 1 minus and drag this 1 minus in here, so that every time we drag this one up, we are basically getting it reversed in here and then output in here, which instead of flattening, it's going to increase the normal strength. Of course, you can leave all of that and name this one normal flatten, but rewire this in here. But for psychological effects, I'm going to keep it like this. So this is the first normal, and let's connect it into the normal. and we're getting a lot of errors in here, which we're going to fix eventually. So let's bring this down. I'm going to add even a more layer of normal by adding a detail normal map. And this detail normal map, basically, when we start to use it, it's going to add a lot of resolution to the texture without any extra work. So let's select this normal U. Let me find it in the content viewer. And in here, I'm going to duplicate it. Let me duplicate it. Normal detail underscore U. And let's drag this one out. I'm going to have some separated. And let's select it here. And this one is going to have always a high tiling amount so that it tiles on top of our mesh, and it adds even more resolution to it. So let's bring a function input out, and let's call it detail normal. And for adding this detail normal on top of this, we need a node called blend angle corrected normals. This is the correct way of blending two normal maps together using this function. So we bring this one, this is the base normal, and this is the additional normal. And now let's select it to the normal map. Okay, now every time we create a material, we have to put a normal map, detailed normal map on top of it. It's good, but might be limiting sometimes. For example, you really do not want to have a detailed normal map. Instead, use the vanilla normal map as well. So I'm going to call a switch. Let's find a switch, static switch. And using this static switch, it has a true and false. I'm going to create a switch and bring it into the value so that every time we set it to be true, it uses the mixed normals, and when we set it to false, it's going to pick up the main normal and completely ignore this chain of nodes and only use the vanilla normal map instead of adding detailed normal map. So let's drag something out and a static bool, and this has a value that is only on and off, on and off. We want to set it to default to be false, and of course let's drag a function input out, and this function input, you see perfectly, creates a static bool for us. So now I'm going to set it here, and I'm going to default it to false so that every time we do not have to use the detailed normal map. So let's wire it into the normal map, and it's perfect. We have now created a switch. Let me make this a bit clearer. We have made a switch. Every time we set it to be true, it's going to use this mixed normal map that we have created. It's going to tile this one and blend it over the normal map that we have. And every time we set it to false, it's going to use only the vanilla normal map without actually doing anything to it with its own controls. So I've set it to default to be false so that later on we can change it. Okay, let's save it again, and we're getting pretty much a mess in here. We need to fix it. Okay, and in here I'm going to also bring this flatten normal and all of these controls in here. Put this one into flatten normal, and this one I'm going to call it detail normal strength, and set the default to be false or 0, and then it's going to be -1. It's going to be not -1, -1. It's going to invert it. 0 inverted in Unreal means white, and it's going to output this, and I believe we are getting a flattened normal in here. Later on we will change it if we was wrong. So let's put this one in here. And of course, I need to create a tiling system for this. Let's bring a coordinate node and a multiply and a constant. Bring the constant here. Let's in constant because we want to expose it and later on change it. I'm going to bring a function as well, and it's going to select a scalar for us and put this one into the UVs. So let's call this one detail normal tiling. Okay, and for the tiling, for the default value, I'm going to set it to 1, and we're getting 1 tiling in here, and I'm going to set this one to 1 and this one to 1 as well, because 1 inverted becomes 1 means white, inverted becomes black, and in flatness we get no flatness, and it means that we are not flattening the normal. So we created a tiling for this as well. Let's select whole of this and call it normal. Okay, this is the most basic master material that we have created. Later on, if we needed to change something, we can come in here and change a lot of things. For example, you can change opacity, you can add emissive color if you wanted to, but for now these controls are fine and I'm happy with these controls. And one thing that you should note, that although these ones have the UVs into 0 to 1 UV and we are not going to tile them, but later on we are going to create materials and procedural materials inside Substance and tile them as well. So we're going to create a tiling system in here that tiles these textures. And of course, for these particular textures, we're not going to tile them. I'm going to keep the tiling to 1, but for the next ones, we are going to add a bit of tiling. So we need the logic to be here. So let's select this one and bring it out. And I'm going to put the multiply in the UV of the normal and the arm and the base color, so that we have a tiling system in here as well. So I'm going to name this one tiling, and I'm going to set the tiling to default 1, means no tiling. It means 0 to 1 UV space and tiling 1. Okay, and let's set the sort priority of this one to -2 so that it appears on top of the list. And if we come in here, the tiling is in here, which is perfect. So we have created the logic, and now we are going to create the master material. So let's select these, and first thing that is obvious that we need to do is sorting these out. So let's first, for the tiling, put the scalar parameter and call it general tiling. So for a normal map, let's bring up these textures from here. Let me drag them in here. Okay, and let's for now delete it. And let's take the base color, connect it into the base color and convert it into a parameter so that later on we can change it in gameplay. Call this base color, and we need a normal map. Let's drag, this one is the normal U, alright. Let's drag it and convert it into a parameter and call it normal. And then what we have remained is this one. Let's put it in here and call it arm H. And you see we have a couple of outputs. One is for the result and one is from the height that we are getting from the alpha of this one. Okay, let's bring this one up and make it a bit more categorized. And let's see what we are left with. And I'm going to bring the controls of the base color on top of them. So let's go for the base color, and for controls I'm going to make the desaturation the first. Let's set it to be 1, and then tint 2, and this brighten as 3. So let's save, and now we have them in here but down the list. It doesn't matter because later on we rename these as well to be on below the list. So let's go for the roughness controls, and for roughness min I'm going to set it 4. For the roughness max I'm going to set it to be 5, and then the next controls belong to the normal map. So, or first let's do the AO because it's easier. So this one, let's name it 6, this one as 7, and then for the normal map, this normal map has been already set to -1 to go on top because it's a texture, and then you have the normal strength which needs to be 8, and then we have this switch which I need to set it to 9. Let's set this one to 9, and then we are remained with the controls of the detail normal. So for the detail normal, for the tiling of the detail normal, I'm going to set it to 10, and for the textures I'm going to set it to -2, so that I want the textures to stay on top. And then we have the normal strength, and this one was 10, let's make this one 11, and I believe we're done. So let's save it and visit the results. So as you see, they have been ordered perfectly. We have the roughness controls, and then AO controls, and then we have the normal strength. We have this B which stands for Boolean, and it's this one. Looks like we didn't rename this. So let's name this one use detail normal, and if it's on, it's going to show the controls of the detail normal as well. So let's save, and in here use detail normal is present in here as well. So now there is only wiring of textures remaining. So let's select this detail normal and drag it into the detail normal, and right click on it, convert it to a parameter, and call it detail normal. Okay, now we need to wire some things in here. We need, for the roughness, let's copy it, name it roughness min, and as you remember, for the roughness min we set it to be 25.25, and duplicate it for the roughness max. Let's set it to be 0.75 and set the name to be max, and let's call this AO min, and for AO min let's pick up the value. It was something like this, and put the value in here and connect it, and select this one and call it AO max and set it to be 1. Okay, and now we need a scalar parameter for the normal strength. Let's call this normal strength, and the strength I'm going to set it to be 1, and then it needs a Boolean switch. So let's call a static bool and convert it in here, and for the default I'm going to set it to be false, but we can turn it on later on. So let's right click on this, I believe. So let's search for a static bool, and there's a parameter version of this one. It's the same, but we can parameterize that to be later on changed, and this one is the right one to use. So let's name it use detail normal, and by the default you can set it to be default, false, or anything you need. So another constant, let's name this one detail normal tiling, and let's copy it. For the tiling amount, by default I'm going to set it to 1, and then for the detail normal strength I'm going to set it to be 1 as well. So let's take these ones and bring them down, and finally finished. We created the first PBR material inside Unreal Engine Material Editor, and it's a pretty awesome material. We can do a lot of things with it. And now for testing, I'm going to select this because it has a couple of materials, and I'm going to come in here in the materials. From this one I'm going to take a couple of instances. Let's name one MI underscore planks, and take one and call it MI underscore bark. Always take your instances from the main root, from the master material, so that you know what you are doing. So for the bark, let's come in here. First we need to assign the dog bark textures into this. So let's search for the dog, and this is the good thing about the naming. You search for it and you take it. So for the bark, let's see, let's select this, and for the normal, and for the base color, excuse me, I'm wrong. For the base color I should have selected the base color. I've selected them wrong. Okay, this is the basic master material untouched. And now let's select this and go into a static mesh editor, and first pick up MI underscore bark, and looks like we need to go vice versa. Yeah, we need to go back. So let's copy it and go back a step and paste the material in here. And this material has been applied on this, and it's working alright. And now let's take an instance for the plank and edit it. So planks, let's select the textures, let's go the dock, and for the planks, first arm texture, and then base color, and then there's a normal map. Okay, we created this one as well, and now what we are left to do is assigning that to this. Okay, let's mi underscore plank, and this is the master material that it gives us. For the most parts it's doing alright, but this one should be metallic. These bolts are not now metallic, they look plastic instead of metallic. So let's inspect the material instance, and yeah, in here we selected the wrong one. So let's go and select the dog planks, and now let's select this, and these have been back into their metallic state. Save them, and in here also when I'm looking at it, we are getting the result perfect. So let's go in the lit mode into buffer visualizations. Let's search for metallic, and yeah, these are doing metallic as well, so it's fine. And now we need to assign these materials to all of the static meshes that we created. So let's go in here. It's nothing too fancy. We need to give these their materials. So let's select these three first. We need to change their materials. So for the first one, let's go for MYUE underscore planks, and it's going to take a minute to assign the material to the static mesh. Okay, it's all right, and everything is doing perfect. And now MYUE underscore bark. Okay, the bark done as well. And we are seeing no changes because everything is the default value and working perfectly. So let's select this plank, and every time there's a plank, we need to assign the material there. And it's a fast thing to do really. So MI bark, copy, and paste it in here. Okay, and this one is doing alright as well. This one as well, and this one as well. Let's save them all and bring other static meshes. Let's bring up these three, and they are using the bark material. So I've copied the bark material previously. Okay, so let's paste this one in here as well, and paste this one as well. And this is doing good. And later on, when we try to layer the materials on top, we will get awesome results by combining these. So close these out, and these one are easier because they are using the bark material as well. So let's select them all and apply the material instance, because later on, every time we try to change the material instance, it's going to be reflected back on all of them, and it's a good thing to have the changes reflected on all of them. So I'm going to take a save from the whole scene, and everything is alright. And now we're really able to change the material instances and change the objects on the fly. So let's select the master material to check it to see if everything is working alright or not. So the first one, now that I'm looking at these, we can do some more things to these, because later on we're going to add a lot more textures. We can place all of them under the texture 01 category. So let's come in here and select all of them, or select those ones that are from the same family, and put the group to texture 01. This one also needs to be on texture 01. All of these to texture 01, so that later on when we assign new materials, we are able to host these on the same category. So all of them are in the texture 01 category. And one more thing to do is, if we come in here, if you want to take them all in the same order that we have them in here, you see they are very ordered and clean. We can change the sort priority in here as well. So let's give the tiling the first sort priority. Let's make this one 0, make this one 1 and 2, excuse me, I was wrong, and this one 1, this one 2, 3, and 4. And now let's test to see if it has been corrected or not. Yeah, they have been placed on top. And because the sort priority is obvious, we only need to give them values. And that's easy to do. So this one was 4. Let's make this one 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, 11, 20, 13, 14, and 50. Okay, let's save and see the material instance. All of them are doing right except for this base color tint. Let's go for this base color tint, and we need to give it a sort priority. This one is 5, this one is 7, this one needs to be 6. Okay, save, and now look at them, they are alright. And if I select this one and import the detail normal as well, we get this one as well in here, and that is fine. Alright, we have the detail normal controls in here as well, and everything then we can do, we can add a lot more logic, and by a sort priority they go below it, these layers. Now let's check the material instance, and the changes that we did go to other material instances as well. You see the tiling, the everything is happening here. Alright, so let's change the blanks to see everything is working alright or not. For tiling, let's make it 2, and the tiling isn't working, and I believe we should have used texture objects instead of texture samplers in here, because texture objects tend to work a lot better inside material functions. So that's an easy fix, we can do it. And I'm happy it happened so that we know what the workaround is. So let's bring in a texture object. Okay, and now the workaround is a little bit different. I need to disconnect this and bring a function input out. And this function input, you see, it brings out a texture 2D, which is perfect. We need a texture 2D, not a vector 3. So vector isn't tiling, but the texture is. So we need to put a texture object in here, the default one. So let's copy this and paste it in here. And then reset this and put the preview into the texture of this texture sampler. This is the workaround to go, and this works fine. So let's name this one base color. It needs to be unique, so let's copy the name from this and delete it. Or let's drag the wires in here and now delete it. Delete this one and paste the base color in here. So now save it, and now we need to do a little bit of fixing in here. So for the texture on the base color, it needs a texture 2D, and it accepts only texture color, not it accepts texture object, not texture sampler. So we need to right click on this and convert it to a texture object. And then what we need to do is copying this and paste into this input and bring it here. And then later on convert the name to parameter and change the name of this one to this one. That's it. Okay, now we are done, and now let's go find the base color underscore u and hit save. And now if we go to the material instance, let me bring it up. This material instance, if I try to tile it, now you see it's tiling, and only the base color is tiling, not all of the material. It's only the base color, and we will do this for all of them as well. And it's an easy fix. We should have done that before, but I'm really happy that happened. When working with material functions, it's a lot better to work with the texture objects instead of texture samplers. So for this one as well, I need to bring a texture object. So, and for the preview, RARMH, I'm going to bring this one and bring it here. It automatically disables this and overrides the compression setting for us. And before that, I need to bring a function input out as well and take the name of this one and copy it in here. It says names must be unique, so I'm going to rewire this, take the name and delete this, and paste the name in here, and now put it in here. So let's paste the name. It's working alright, and couple of more textures to do, and they only belong to the normal map section. Okay, in here again, let's bring a texture object, drag a function input out, and bring it into this texture so that it only uses that. So for this one, I'm going to use normal underscore u, normal utility, and let's update the nodes, and let's call this one normal map. Wire this in here, let's connect it to here, select the name of this, copy it, and rename this to normal map. Okay, and now one more remaining to do, which is this one. Again, bring this texture object, and let's call this one detail normal map, and put it into texture, and we need to delete this one, detail normal map, paste it in here. Yeah, the detail normal instead of detail normal map. So detail normal, let's connect it in here and copy the name and delete it, and paste the name in here. We want the name to stay consistent. Okay, we've done pretty much anything in terms of textures, and now we have 4 outputs need to be done. One of them we did using this texture object, and only 3 remaining. So let's copy this texture object, and we want the normal map, normal underscore u, or first let's change the name, normal map. Of course the name should be the same as this one, so I'm going to pick normal, and then bring that normal u. U stands for utility, if you remember, and convert it. It's already a parameter, we do not need to convert it, so put it into normal map and delete this one, and one texture object for this as well. Texture object, take the name of this one, detail normal map, convert it to a parameter, and select the texture and paste it in here in detail normal map, and then we are left with this arm only. So texture object, convert it to parameter, take the name of this one, and this naming is pretty important. If you want to everything that you have connected to stay the same, you want to make the name consistent. So this one as well, and now it should fix all of the problems. Now it's working alright and fine, and we are getting the tiling back. So there's one more thing to do, is putting all of these, let me select this one, putting all of these into the texture 01, and for the sort priority, let's set them all to be 0 so that they appear on the top of the list. So now bring the material. This is the general tiling. Let me set the sort priority to -1 so that it goes on top of all of them. Okay, we have it in here, and now the tiling should work all right. Let me tile it, and now the material is tiling, not the texture object, and now the whole material is tiling. Okay, it's fine. And if you want to make sure that the material is tiling all across, the base color you see it tiling, but for other modes, let's go to metallic, and this way you see this map is working all right because the metallic is working all right. Otherwise, other maps as well are working all right as well. So let's go to normal, and change the tiling a bit. You see now the normal as well is tiling all right. So we do not need the tiling for this. We need tiling for the tiling maps that later on we add. So let's go to lit mode, and now finally we have created the PBR material fine, and we have corrected the problems as well. And this problem correction is one of the best ways to learn. Okay, we have the desaturation. We can take the colors out. We can tint it to a color that we want, basically to everything that you need. For example, you want to make it a little bit more used, you bring it towards the yellow, or you want to make it mossy or anything, it's basically fine. Okay, and then we have the darken or brighten. Let me come in here, find it. It shouldn't be darken. Let me change the name to brighten. I want the names to be expressed, not really on the fly. So it's brighten, set the default to 1, and this brightens the textures. And it's good for sometimes, but not for now. So roughness, min and max, both of them are using 0.75, which is wrong. I need to put this one to 0.72, and it's alright. Let's go to buffer visualization mode, and from here we're gonna find the roughness. So this is the roughness that we are getting, and let's put this one to 0.25, and also looks like we need to fix the roughness on these as well. So the min roughness is 0.25, and if I try to put the min roughness to 0, it's going to use more values in it. So if I bring it down more, we're getting really a wet floor, something like this. And using the max roughness, we're able to tweak the values. So I'm going to keep this, and the next one is AO min and max. I believe for now they do not have any effect, so let them be for later on if we had the use for them. And the next one is the normal strength, and let's increase the strength of normal maps. You see now the normal has become a lot more powerful, which is not what we want really. Let's decrease the effect, and now it has flattened the normal, and we're not seeing the effect of normal map really. Okay, you might choose to, because these are woods and rough woods, you might choose to make them a bit more powerful. So then the detail normal map, and we need to fix it. Okay, we did it, and we pasted a tiling normal map in here. Of course this one should be tiling, so there's a normal map tiling, which is tiling the normal map across the surface, and you can increase the normal map strength as well. Later on, when we try to add detail tiling normal map, it would become a lot more visible. So for testers, let's go and use the starter contents in here and pick up a tiling normal map in here from here. I believe this one, no. Let's pick up this ground grass and plug it in here. And you see the effect of detail normal map happening in here. Let's increase the tiling all the way to 25, for example. And because this isn't real time, we are not seeing the effects. So the tiling on this one isn't working. We need to fix it to see what is going on. So the detail normal tiling isn't working. So let's find it. Detail normal tiling. It's alright. In here, let's go in here to see what is happening. It's alright in here as well. So the problem is that I overwrit the baked normal and left the detail normal untouched, and that was the problem that I did. So let's search for planks, and I'm going to pick up this normal plank to get this normal map done. And now in here, instead of that, place the normal into the detail normal socket. Okay, now you see it here happening. Let's check the tiling. Okay, the tiling is working all right. You see in close up it gives a lot more detail. Okay, and the detail normal strength, it's working all right. So I decided to keep this. Let's compare it before and after. You see it adds a lot of detail on close up. So let's compare it before and after. You see this is the effect of baked normal map that we baked in Substance Painter, and this is the effect after that. Let's make it a bit more visible, something like this, and try to turn it off and on. And you see the effect that it has created for us. Okay, I'm happy with it, and I'm going to keep it because in close-ups it gives a little bit more resolution to that. And the same goes for this one as well. Let's select this, increase the detail normal map, and from here let's pick up this ground and put it in here and activate it. And on these walls I believe we can get a bit more tiling going. Okay, let's increase the tiling. Overall it adds a bit of resolution to it. Or you can increase the effect, but I don't want that. I need to increase the tiling to make it read even more high resolution in close-ups. Okay, this was about material creation. Of course, the first layer material creation, and later on we'll create sets of tiling materials to be blended with these textures. and make the effects a bit more grounded and make the dock a bit more used and old and grimy and dirty, which is what we wanted really. Okay, see you in the next session.